Hey everybody, and have you ever had one of those days where you constantly fall into pits and have the FBI and scientists on your tail? E.T. sure as hell did. Now what could be said about E.T.? A classic film about a kid befriending an alien, the magical whimsy of childlike wonder, the charm of the alien himself, and a young boy yelling this in a family movie.
It was nothing like that, penis breath!
Elliot!
E.T. touched us all. With the film being a smash hit at the box office and critics and audiences alike, Atari, then the biggest video game provider, scooped up the rights to make a game of it for the Atari 2600. They then got Howard Scott Warshaw, who previously worked on Yar's Revenge and Raiders of the Lost Ark, to produce a game based on the film within a tight 5-week deadline to release in time for the 1982 holiday season. Everybody hated this game. Things weren't looking too great for the video game industry, especially in North America, as quality control for the medium was just as non-existent as my social life. It felt like anybody and their grandmothers could make games for these platforms, and even Atari were struggling after butchering Pac-Man, feeling that ET was their last hope, with reports that they produced more ET cartridges than actual Atari 2600 consoles. Like, the film's great and all, but when you actually sit down and watch it, it doesn't lend itself to video games all that well. There is the iconic bike scene, and even then. Can't wait to play this. Once the Christmas of '82 came along, it was slammed by critics and audiences alike due to how cryptic and complicated the game was on top of its unappealing presentation. I mean, it was produced in 5 weeks. This would cause customers to return the game, and alongside sales already not meeting expectations, would lead Atari to bury unsold inventory in a New Mexico landfill, leading to the infamous video game crash of 1983, with consumers burned out by the medium's disappointing quality, swearing them off at least until the NES came out 2 years later. Let's all thank Rob the Robot for getting us to this point. Long after all of this, it'll be widely regarded as the worst video game ever made. And that is quite the statement. It wasn't the direct cause of the crash per se, but rather the straw that broke the camel's back. It's definitely the most infamous video game ever made just for its history alone. But now let's actually play the game to see if it deserves such a reputation. You boot up the game and you get the title screen with the theme and... you don't know what you're in for, lassies and gons. You then start up with E.T. arriving in a forest, now wanting to go home. Why the hell did you land here then? If I wrote this game, E.T. would have went, I don't want to land here, this place blows, and then leave. The end. Also, why is E.T. puke green? I know the game was rushed, but I doubt it would have taken that long for Howard to make him brown like in the movie. For the game, you essentially had to find telephone pieces in pits to call home and get picked up by the spaceship, whilst avoiding FBI agents who take away a phone piece if you touch them, and a scientist effectively putting you on timeout. Throughout this, the score at the bottom is also your health bar, and if it goes to 0, you die. I found Waldo! Elliot can restore some health if you die, and there are also those dots that can replenish these 2 in certain spots, but I believe you can only die so many times before restarting the whole thing again. It does follow the source material pretty well, but it's not without its annoyances, starting off with the pits. You need to go down them to find telephone pieces, as well as this flower which does nothing but waste your time. But there are only 3 pieces in the game, and are randomly generated with each playthrough, meaning you could spend most of the game falling into these pits that have nothing. But for getting out of the pits, you hold up levitating to get out, and once you make it out, a lot of the time you can fall right back in them. You can have the precision of a neurosurgeon and you can still fall down these pits. Stop falling into these holes, you hole! Oh, I remember that scene from the movie. Yeah, the scene where E.T. was drunk. But then there are the enemies, beginning with the scientists dragging you into their prison cell. Granted, you can immediately get out of there once they're gone, but it's pretty annoying having to drag you to it, especially if you're far away from it, killing the game's already rough pacing. Yeah, that pales in comparison to the FBI agent taking away a piece of your telephone you spent minutes searching for, and it's even worse at the start and end, derailing your entire playthrough. God, I hate these guys! Almost as much as I hate... okay, maybe not that much. Like, can't you all give me some slack here?
I wanna go home.
Though in time you do get an understanding of how the game works, which brings us to my biggest gripe with the game, its lack of clarity. It does not make itself clear on what you should be doing, and for Atari, that's not a good combination, and I can see why gamers in the 80s returned this game. It's ambitious for the console, no doubt, but you really need an instruction manual for this kind of game. Too bad I just had the cartridge. Also, it's pretty inconsistent with its rules, as sometimes when you fall into pits, you can stop yourself falling and get out more quickly, and other times you can't. You can sometimes escape the scientist by playing a Mario Party minigame, whereas a lot of the time they have a frighteningly strong grip on you. The question mark can sometimes let you know if a telephone piece is in a pit, whilst most times it says, "Get out, you idiot." Sometimes you make bad financial decisions impulse buying on eBay, and other times you don't. Ooh, Danny DeVito's shoelace collection! And other times you don't. And other times you don't. And other times you don't. And other times you don't! When you get used to these, the game isn't all that bad. It works relatively well, all things considered, but boy do the scientists and FBI agents make this more frustrating than it should be, causing you to yell out "screw it" and reset the game. But if you want a more pleasant experience, you can change the game mode to not have the agent and scientist on your ass. It has a lot less bullwinkle this way, but it's still pretty tedious to find the pieces and then find a spot to call home without them. It really is a pick your poison situation. You can roam across the Great Wall of China twice and yet you still can't find a spot to call home, causing you to restart the game and find the pieces all over again. And once you finally find a place to call the spaceship, you head back to the forest you started in and find the place to stand in whilst the timer counts down as the spaceship lands, and with that, you finally go home. Look, E.T.'s raving! And that was E.T. for the Atari 2600. And if I gotta be honest, I don't think this is the worst video game ever made. But I'm not necessarily defending it either. If anything, it's pretty mediocre. I will commend Howard Scott Warshaw's efforts for producing this game within a tight deadline, and I honestly can't find anything wrong with it in terms of bugs and glitches. It's way too polished to have such a name for itself. The gameplay loop does work to an extent, and follows the source material reasonably well. But man is it frustrating and complicated to get through normally, and without those obstacles, it's kind of boring. Even then, I would gladly play this over any of the crap new game put out on the 3DS and Wii U eShop, and now I don't think it's the biggest failure in gaming anymore. Conquered anyone? Plus, I don't think this is the worst game on the Atari 2600, let alone the worst of all time. But with that out of the way, its infamy at the very least taught us some valuable lessons about not rushing games in time for the holiday season, and the importance of quality control. If only Pokemon and the Switch eShop learned those lessons too. Do you think E.T.'s the worst video game ever made? Let me know down below. And with that, thanks for watching.